Good morning, everybody. If you would please take your places, we're going to get started. Doing our invocation today is Pastor Darrell Porter. Pastor Darrell Porter, for over 40 years, has pastored in 8 churches in California, Nevada, and Illinois. He's authored numerous Christian books. He's the co-founder of Saints Taking Action for Our Nation's Destiny, STAND. An outreach minister, helped advance Christian principles in local, state, and national government. Among other publications, he's also the author of 25 Bible-based reasons not to vote Democrat, Why We Must Fight, and What You Need to Know If You're a Democrat. Please, for our invocation, welcome Pastor Darrell Porter.
Thank you, Dave. 249 years ago, when our first Congress gathered together, there was a prayer, and it was the first prayer of our Congress. And this morning, as a part of our invocation, I'm going to actually read that prayer that was prayed at our first Congress by Reverend Jacob Duche. O Lord, our Heavenly Father, high and mighty, King of kings and Lord of lords, who does from thy throne behold all the dwellers on earth, and reigneth with power supreme and uncontrolled over all the kingdoms, empires, and governments. Look down in mercy, we beseech thee, on these our American states, who have fled to thee from the rod of the oppressor and thrown themselves on thy gracious protection, desiring to be henceforth dependent only on thee. To thee have they appealed for the righteousness of their cause. To thee do they now look up for that countenance and support which thou alone canst give. Take them, therefore, Heavenly Father, under thy nurturing care. Give them wisdom and counsel and valor in the field. Defeat the malicious designs of our cruel adversaries. Convince them of the unrighteousness of their cause, and if they persist in their sanguinary purposes of own unerring justice, sounding in their hearts, constrain them to drop the weapons of war from their unnerved hands in the day of battle. Be thou present, O God of wisdom, and direct the counsels of this honorable assembly. Enable them to settle things on the best and surest foundation, that the scene of blood may be speedily closed, that order, harmony, and peace may be effectually restored, and truth and justice, religion and piety prevail and flourish amongst the people. Preserve the health of their bodies and vigor of their minds. Shower down on them and the millions they here represent such temporal blessings as thou seest expedient for them in this world, and crown them with everlasting glory in the world to come. All this we ask in the name and through the merits of Jesus Christ, thy Son and our Savior. Amen. Reverend Jacob Duche, rector of Christ Church of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, September 7th, 1774, 9 o'clock in the morning. And Lord, I pray this morning for our strength in our nation and for your blessings upon this event. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance will be Assemblywoman Danielle Gallant. Danielle is a wife, a mother, a business owner. In 1922, she was elected to the Nevada Assembly to represent District 23, which is most of southern Clark County. And in her first session, she was ranked among the top of conservative voters. And her voting record, according to Nevada policy, her score is about the same as the governor's. Ladies and gentlemen, Assemblywoman Danielle Gallant.
Thank you. Please remove your hats and place your hand over your heart and join me in saluting our flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Danielle. If you'll please remain standing for our national anthem. Singing our national anthem today is Kelly Hafley. Kelly Hafley grew up in an Air Force family and is a graduate of the University of Nevada, Reno in 2012 with a Bachelor of Science degree in physics. I can say all this stuff because she's my daughter. She's also She and her husband, Sean, are proud parents of 4 kids, and Kelly has performed in theater both in high school and college and continues today performing in community theater. Ladies and gentlemen, Kelly Hafley.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you. Please be seated. Now you know I asked her to do it. Hey, welcome everybody. My name is David Gibbs. I am the president of the Nevada Republican Club, and we're very proud to have the opportunity to host Governor DeSantis today. Thank you all for coming out early on a Saturday morning and having a breakfast here. I want to thank the folks at the TI, the sound crew, the servers, the staff who put all this together on some pretty short notice. And so, you know, when you see them, say thanks a lot for all they've done and for all they're doing for us. A couple of folks I want to recognize today. We have some candidates in the room real quick here. Candidate for Congressional District 1, Fleming Larson. Where are you at, Fleming? Candidate Congressional District 3, I saw Drew Johnson. Drew? And I'm doing this in numerical order, 1, 3, and now District 4. John Lee, candidate Congressional District 4. John's a former mayor of North Las Vegas, where I've lived for 24 plus years. We also have elected officials. You already met Assemblywoman Danielle Gallant. We also have State Senator Jeff Stone. And I hope I got everybody, but we have some Assembly and State Senate candidates. For Assembly District 1, we have Garland Brinkley. For Senate District 1, we have Patricia Brinkley. Brandon Davis, where you at, Brandon? I saw you somewhere. Assembly District 34. And then also we have with us today the president of Power to Parent, Aaron Phillips. If you're not familiar with Power to Parent, the whole battle for school choice and for school freedom to where you want your kids to do, they're running that. And they're very much involved. So check out parenttoparent.org and see what they're doing. They're doing good work for our kids. Okay, a lot of you folks had the opportunity about our club. Real quick here, I just want to let you know that we host a luncheon every month. The first Tuesday every month, we host a luncheon at the Ahern Hotel. If you're not a member of our club, it's really, really expensive. It's $25 a year. And our luncheons are $45 if you're not a member and $40 if you are a member. So it pays to be a member because you get $5 off on our luncheons. Go to our website, NevadaRepublicanClub.com, and you can learn all about us and what we do. We'd love to have you come join our club. We have a lot of folks involved. I'm going to ask real quick here, our board members and officers of our club, stand up real quick. These are the folks that make it happen. Jim, you too. Stand up, Jim. These are the folks that make it happen here, and we're involved in putting this together, and our volunteers. Thank you all very much. All right. One of the things I'm going to bring out Adam Laxalt, he's gonna be the moderator for this interview, for the discussion today. Adam Laxalt, as you know, was in the Navy, served with Governor DeSantis over in Iraq. He is also the national chairman for the Never Back Down PAC and the former Attorney General for Nevada. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Adam Laxalt.
Dave, appreciate it.
And now the main event. Governor Ron DeSantis is a native Floridian with blue-collar roots. He was raised in Dunedin, Florida by his mother, a nurse, and his father, who installed cable boxes. He attended Dunedin High School and worked his way through Yale University, where he captained the varsity baseball team. Graduated honors Harvard Law School, and he earned a commission in the U.S. Navy as a JAG officer. During his active duty time, Ron deployed to Iraq in support of the SEAL mission in Fallujah, Ramadi, and all throughout Al-Anbar province. His military decorations include the Bronze Star for Meritorious Service and the Iraq Campaign Medal. He also served as a prosecutor in Florida, where he put child predators behind bars. He was elected to Congress in 2012 on a platform of government accountability, advocating for term limits and a balanced budget amendment. In 2018, Ron DeSantis was elected the 46th governor of Florida. As governor, he's fought for what's right, taking the arrows for the people he represents. During the darkest days of 2020, when the corrupt establishment, bureaucracy, and corporate media united to force lockdowns and mandates on Americans, Governor DeSantis stood for freedom, even when it wasn't popular. Ladies and gentlemen, candidate for President of the United States, Governor Ron DeSantis.
Well, good morning, Las Vegas. Thank you for coming out. Great to be back in Nevada. Great to see so many great people. And, Florida and Nevada have one thing in common. We both are now places where disaffected Californians seem to move to. You all have been having that for a long time. We just now, in the last 3 or 4 years, have started to see that big time. I'm scheduled to debate Gavin Newsom on November 30th. On Fox, which is going to be good. And some said, this is the debate between, who's better, California or Florida. Well, let me tell you, that debate is over because people have voted with their feet. They have left there. They've moved here. They've moved to Florida in really record numbers. And so I think that doesn't lie, but it's great to be back. And I thank you all for coming out.
All right. Good morning, everybody. How are we doing today? It's great to have the governor back in Nevada, especially on the heels a few months ago of a almost 3,000 person event in northern Nevada. And so we're really excited what's being built here in the state. We're excited with hundreds of volunteers and field offices and staff members. And, we are ready to go. We're ready to compete for this caucus. And with that, let's jump into this fireside.
Well, I also got to go. We have 6, 5, and 3-year-old kids, and before we did the Bass Fry the night before, we went to the Reno Rodeo, which was a really big event. Many thousands of people on that one. And my kids, we flew from Florida that morning, so they were on East Coast time, and they wanted to wait and stay until the Bulls came, and that was the last thing. So God bless them. They stayed up till 10:15 Pacific time to watch the Bulls after leaving probably at 6 a.m. in the morning East Coast time. So we had a great time there up in Reno at both the Bass Fry and at the rodeo.
All right. Well, about a year ago when Governor DeSantis was in Vegas, we had all of these domestic issues going on. Our country was falling apart in every way that you can imagine. But, we have to start this fireside with what's going on in the world right now as we see the world fall apart. Governor DeSantis has been, one of the leaders in trying to find a way to support Israel as a governor in the vacuum of a president not doing it. So, Governor, I think I'd like you to just tell the crowd a handful of things that you guys have been able to do for Israel, and why this issue is so near and dear to your heart.
Well, when the news of the attack broke on October 7th, we knew it was serious, and then as more information came out, you knew it was just historic in its barbarity. And it was the most Jews killed in any single day since the Holocaust. Probably the worst terrorist attack in modern America or modern world history. And if you look at just the number of Americans that were killed, it's one of the top terrorist attacks even in U.S. history, definitely in the top 10, probably even in the top 5 in terms of the numbers. So it was an awful, awful toll. As governor of Florida, though, I knew it would absolutely impact our state in a big way. We have the second highest Israeli-American population in the United States. Since I've been governor, we've really been a magnet for a lot of Orthodox Jews because, we kept the synagogues open and the schools and all that stuff and a whole host of other reasons. So we knew it was going to impact our state. And one of the things that we noticed were people that were over there had no help from the State Department, no help from the American embassy there or the Biden administration to be able to get out of the war zone. So these people are just stuck. So I did an executive order in Florida. We scrambled our emergency management resources and we sent planes over to Israel, negotiated with the Israeli government to be able to fly into Ben Gurion Airport, and we've been able to repatriate almost 700 Americans back to Florida. Mostly Floridians, but not all Floridians. We're all Americans, but one of the things that was striking, so my wife and I, this is now probably a couple weeks ago, my wife and I met the first plane load, 271 people, again, mostly Floridians, but not all. But 91 of the 271 were children. So we're standing there at the foot as people are walking down the plane, and you just see families. You see mother, father, 4 or 5 kids, the family dog, all coming down. And one of the, and they were Florida residents by and large. One of the mothers came up to me, and she had a six-year-old daughter. And I have a 6-year-old daughter, so it resonated with me. She's like, all she kept saying the last 2 nights, I don't want any more rockets. I don't want to have to dodge. I just want Florida. I just want to get back to Florida. So while Biden dithered, we made it happen. And after we were able to bring people back, when we would send planes back to Israel, I had so many people donating things in Florida. So we were able to fill these planes a number of times and bring everything from medical supplies to helmets to body armor, you name it. People were donating all kind of stuff. So we were able to work with the Israeli government to be able to do that. But when you have situations like this, what we did was it had a small impact, positive impact. You either lead or you don't. And I think Biden, he didn't even wake up when this happened. He didn't take the 2 a.m. phone call. He slept in. And I'm just thinking, don't you deserve a president that's going to take the 2 a.m. phone call and actually get to work?
And that's been a hallmark for Governor DeSantis, which I believe no governor in America has exhibited stronger, more consistent leadership over the last 5 years. So let's move to China. The governor was actually in Washington, D.C. yesterday morning with this crazy schedule he has, and he delivered a landmark address on his approach to China. Will you share that with our fellow Nevadans here?
Sure. I think if you look at the threats that America faces in the world, of course, seeing the Hamas attack on Israel, knowing that that was funded and orchestrated by Iran, that should remind us that things like terrorism are still very real. It's even realer when you have an open border that almost 8 million people have come across in the last 2.5 years. That gets real very quickly. Do you not think that our enemies are exploiting that border to send people in who want to do us harm? Of course they are. There is going to be a terrorist, and look, I hope I'm wrong, but the math doesn't lie. There's going to be a terrorist attack in this country that we're going to be able to trace to someone coming across the border. So that's a real threat to the American people. Seeing the instability in other parts of the world, that definitely impacts us. But the one, I think, real threat to us as a country overall comes from the Chinese Communist Party. They are a nation state that has been on the rise, largely because of bad U.S. policy over the last couple decades. Their economy is almost as big as ours. Their military is almost as big as ours. And they have ambitions, very clearly stated, to eclipse the United States and be the world's dominant superpower. Now, is this just something we should be concerned about? Look, I'm competitive, I want to be number one. Is this just something that we need to be concerned about because we want to beat our chest and say we're the most powerful? No, that's not really it. If China is able to attain that position, they will use that power to export their authoritarian vision of society all around the world. It will impact the United States of America. It will impact your families and your way of life. China believes in things like internet policing, social credit scores, all these different things where they exert control over the population. If they're dominating the global economy, they're not going to allow people to have access to that economy unless they bend the knee, unless they behave in certain ways. And you already see how some of our business leaders behave as of right now when we're still the top dog. A Wall Street executive says something negative about China. 2 days later, he's got to come out and apologize. Someone working for an NBA team says something about human rights in China. The next thing you know, all these players are filming these videos praising China, saying how great they are. That's China exercising power. So we have to be able to check their ambitions. We have to make sure that our economy is stronger than theirs. We have to disentangle our economy from theirs because we're dependent on them now for so many things that we shouldn't be dependent on them for. So it really requires kind of a whole of society approach that, yes, we need more military power to deter their ambitions militarily, but we also need to change how we're handling the economic relationship where we decouple. But then you also look at the amount of power they do in our own country and their cultural power. I banned China from buying land in the state of Florida. They're not allowed to have farmland. They're not allowed to have anything in Florida. And that should be done nationwide. Why would we want the CCP to have American farmland? Why would you want to allow them to buy land near military bases? Or even more, there have been states that have given China land near military bases. Not Florida, but that's happened. That is totally unacceptable. They get involved in our universities with things like Confucius Institutes, which are basically institutes to spew CCP propaganda. We ejected those from our universities in Florida. They're not allowed to set up shop. So understanding that, China has police stations set up in this country where they police their own foreign nationals. I mean, it's really outrageous what ends up happening, but I think it's important because of all I've said, but keep this fact in mind. Either World War II or the Cold War, we did not have enemies or adversaries who were equal or better than us economically. The Allied powers had much better economy than the Axis powers. We had a much bigger economy, stronger than the Soviet Union. That was a Potemkin village. China is in position where they can catch and either eclipse us economically. That makes this confrontation much, much more significant, and it gives China an ability to advance their agenda. So I think the policy we laid out yesterday, I think answers all these challenges in a way that will deter conflict with China, because I think our goal should be to avoid getting into a war with China. But you're only going to do that through strength. So we're going to bring more American strength. I can tell you this, I'm not going to be like Joe Biden. He treats China as a client for himself, not as an adversary that we have to hold accountable.
So the governor and I actually first met becoming officers in the U.S. Navy, and I was able to see over 20 years ago his leadership firsthand. Why don't you talk a little bit about what the military did for you for leadership and help prepare you for being a governor and the future President of the United States?
Sure. I mean, I think the first thing is when you and anybody here who has served, thank you for your service, but you guys know when you sign up and you put on that uniform, you're writing a check payable to the United States of America for an amount up to including your life. You don't know where they're going to send you, but you are putting yourself in the hands of flag officers, general officers, even civilian leadership. You check your own agenda at the door. You check your personal desires at the door. It is about service above self. And that's a kind of an ethic that I've always took with myself. When I ended up leaving the military, I got elected to the U.S. Congress for 3 terms. I've recovered from that experience, trust me, I'm okay. But one of the first things I did was I declined the congressional pension and I declined the congressional health care benefits because average Americans were being forced to be in Obamacare. Congress exempted itself. And so I said, you know what? I'm a servant leader. I'm representing my people. I'm not there hovering above the people. And so doing things like that, I think, has been consistent throughout my career in office. I am going to put the service and the mission ahead of any of my personal issues or whatnot. And COVID was a good example of that because I think it was pointed out. When I was making some of those stands, it was very unpopular. 100% of the media was attacking me. The left was attacking me. Fauci, other bureaucrats were attacking me. Even some Republicans were attacking me. And a lot of people told me that I was writing off my political future and all this stuff. And look, I didn't know. But you know what? When you look in the mirror, what are you in this for? Are you in it to lead? Are you in it to get people's back when the chips are down? That's when people need a leader. It's easy to lead when the wind's at your back. Are you going to be able to stand up there when you're getting pounded every day and just fight for the people that didn't have a voice? So I didn't know how it was going to work out politically, but I said, you know, I got to care more about protecting the jobs of the people I represent than I do about protecting my own political hide. So we stood, we did the right thing. And I think it comes from that idea of just service above self. This is not something that you're entitled to. You've been given a privilege to be able to serve the folks. Make the most of it. Make an impact. Make a difference. But certainly, when the rubber hits the road, that's really when you see whether somebody's got leadership or not. And if you run for cover in those situations, then you're not a leader. And so you got to do what you think is right. You can't get swayed by all the nonsense. And so we've definitely carried that out as governor, and that will be the same thing as president. Look, you look at this country and the descent that we've gone down and the decline of institutions, our economy, the military, all these different things, and you come in there and you want to change that. You're going to fix that. Well, guess what? The powers that be in D.C. are not going to like that. They don't want to give up any of their power. The media is not going to like it. Obviously, the left's not going to like it. So you're going to get in there. You're not just going to be, when you go into D.C., you're not going to be just greeted as a liberator. They're going to try to kneecap you. They're going to fight back against you. And so you've got to have the fortitude to know that, you know, you're looking higher, there's a higher purpose here, and you'll take those hits and just keep on going. And if you do that, what I've found is the left doesn't know what to do then. They're so used to Republicans wilting under pressure. They expect that if they just start churning up phony narratives, they get their buddies in the media to start smearing a Republican, that they basically tuck their tail between the legs and they run for cover. And look, honestly, that's usually what happens. But if you just stand there and you don't give an inch and you don't back down from those people, guess what? They don't really have anything else to come at you at that point. Like, yeah, they're going to call you names, they're going to smear you, they're going to do all that. But, you know, I'm a big boy, I can take it because I know that this country is worth fighting for. And I know unless we change things in a major way, we're going to turn over this country to our kids and grandkids, an America that's less prosperous and less free than what we inherited. And that is unacceptable for me, and I'm not going to stand for it.
Well, all of us lived in a lockdown state, and I know we all would have traded Sisolak for DeSantis any day of the week, right? So we have these, you know, almost weekly reports now of the crumbling of our military. We have ships crashing, we have planes crashing, we have wokeness infecting our military. Day one, you're the commander-in-chief. What's your plan for our military?
So the one thing that's been really eye-opening for me over the last few years is the number of veterans who will come up to me, kind of shake their head and say, with what's going on in the military now, I don't know if I'd want my kid or grandkid to sign up. And that's a big deal because throughout most of our history, there are a lot of families that took pride in having multi-generational service members, but they see that the military has lost focus. They see that they're pursuing social experimentation, political, woke ideology. When I see as a former naval officer, Navy veteran, when I see drag queens involved in recruiting for the Navy, when I see them focusing on things like pronouns and things, and I'm just thinking to myself, when you're signing up, you want to know that the people that are in charge are focusing on the mission above all else. Because when you do that, you got to come together to accomplish the mission. When people have their own side agendas, that's when the mission doesn't get accomplished. That's when people die in the military. So people see that they've lost their way. They saw how the military handled the forced COVID shots of the military. There was no basis to force these military members to be doing these shots. They saw that it wasn't even preventing infection. They knew a lot of the service members had already had COVID. They still made them do it. And so a lot of people had a principled objection to it. And so they got kicked out of the military. So you drove off a lot of good warriors. That absolutely impacted recruiting. So I think fixing the culture is something as Commander-in-Chief you need to do day one. We're going to rip all the woke out of the military. We're going to rip all the political out. We're going to be focused on mission first again. And what that will do is, and people in the military should be promoted for one reason only: merit. That's the only reason to promote. That's how you earn positions. None of this other stuff. So when you do that, it increases morale because people see kind of the mission's back, but it also is going to increase recruiting, and people are going to want to join again in higher numbers. I think that's the first thing you have to do, because I rolled out some plans yesterday to expand our naval fleet to be able to check China in the Indo-Pacific, which is important. We can do it. There's other things we have to modernize. Not all that stuff's actually that expensive, and we're going to have a lot of money because we're going to repeal all Biden's garbage. So we'll reduce deficit. We'll do all that stuff. But the military is going to be part of it. But I think you got to deal with that culture first. And how is it that one of the biggest fiascos in modern military history for us, the Afghanistan withdrawal, 13 service members killed, billions of dollars of equipment turned over to the Taliban, how is it that not one single person has been held accountable to this day for that? We need accountability in the military again, and particularly with the Flag and General Officer Corps.
So we are suffering all-time highs of inflation. Here in Nevada, we're back into skyrocketing gas prices. What's your plan to get our economy back on track? And presumably energy is a piece of that. If you don't mind sharing with everybody how in the world we're going to reverse this course we're on right now.
Well, I do think there's a number of things we can do, but the lowest hanging fruit, and I will do this, is we need to open up all of our domestic energy for production. Oil, gas, everything we've got. And that means federal lands, that means Alaska, that means Keystone Pipeline. We're gonna open it all up on day one. We're gonna accelerate permits like pipelines, not just Keystone, but from the Marcellus Shale and all those others. That will lower gas prices. That'll be good for jobs. It'll be good for the economy as a whole, because energy impacts prices for everything, business operations, you name it. So when you're buying things, the cost of energy is absolutely embedded into that. So it'll help overall with inflation, which I think will be really, really good. But it's also good for our national security. Biden's policy of a Green New Deal, that helps Russia, China, and Iran. Our policy of being the dominant energy producer in the world, that hurts Russia, China, and Iran. Biden wants to force everybody to buy an electric vehicle. He's forcing the car companies to make, a lot of people don't want those electric vehicles. I mean, I think you look at a company like Tesla that's done very well. Obviously, Musk is a great entrepreneur. He serves a market very well. But someone goes in to just buy a Ford F-150, they don't want the electric version. They want the normal version. And so I think it's gonna end up decimating our auto manufacturing in this country. But here's the thing. Who do you rely on for the materials to go into a lot of those parts, like the batteries? You rely on China because they mine all the minerals, the rare earth minerals that go into some of this stuff. Biden does not allow. He has taken a lot of our land out of circulation for mining our own stuff here. So he has this fetish to force everyone for an EV, yet he's not willing to allow a lot of the stuff to be produced here in the United States. So it makes us more dependent on China, which is a total farce. So we're gonna reverse that. We'll save the American automobile. You have the right to drive what you want. And another thing I think we'll do, and I gotta think through how you do it, but I remember coming out here doing an event with Adam when I think you must have had gas at $5 a gallon. So this was in like the last year and a half. And I knew it was higher here, but I didn't realize how much higher. And everyone really was quick to tell me, no, we've got really high. Why is that? Because Arizona and Nevada, you're victims to California's rules and bureaucracy and regulation. So California imposes all this stuff on how this is refined, and the states here are too small to be their own, so California's so big, so then you guys are basically paying because of California's bad policies. I think if there's a way for the federal government to overrule some of that nonsense and liberate states like Nevada from the yoke of California so you have access to cheaper gas, I would want to pursue that because I think you guys are getting hosed because of what California's doing.
Okay, one of the other major topics is crime. We have skyrocketing crime in many of our urban centers, and I want to at least highlight one reason, and that is these Soros prosecutors. If you all did not know, Governor DeSantis is the first governor in America to remove a Soros prosecutor. So tell us a little bit about how you see the world on crime and law and order, both from your state perspective and as the President of the United States.
Well, look, I think that it's interesting. You see crime spiraling out of control in Chicago, LA, all these places. Florida's crime rate, we're at a 50-year low in crime rate. I mean, so the policy and the leadership matters, and it just shows that. So I think the reason why you have crime out of control in these areas is really three things. One, they've turned their back on law enforcement. These law enforcement officers get attacked by left-wing activists, by the media, all this stuff in a lot of these places. Look, do you want to put on a uniform and risk your life to be treated that way? I think a lot of people wouldn't want to do that. So they've had very low morale. I think the force is not as effective because they don't get the support that they need. It's interesting. I was in California for the most recent Republican debate, and I talked to a police chief in one of the municipalities in Southern California. How are things going? He's like, we're going good. It's just all my police officers want to move to Florida now because you guys take care of us. And so that matters. The other thing is you have a lot of soft on crime policies now, like abolishing cash bail, which they did in New York and Illinois, and I think they're doing in some other jurisdictions now. That means they just put the criminals right back on the street. So they'll commit a crime, they go in front of court, they get put right back out. They're committing 2 or 3 more crimes before they even face the music for the initial crime. And that's happening in all these jurisdictions. And then I think the third thing is these prosecutors. They get elected with an ideological agenda. They think it's, quote, social justice to not enforce the law. Some of the laws they think are, quote, unjust, so they just take it upon themselves not to enforce it. No, you take an oath to faithfully execute the law when you're an elected prosecutor. If you don't like a law, resign your post, run for the legislature, and then try to change the law. That's the way you do it. But what's happened is, so when I was in Southern California, my wife and I, we go to a handful of events, political events. We met 6 or 7 people that had been mugged in the last year. And I'm thinking to myself, in Florida, I don't think I've ever met one person at a political event who had been mugged. And I'm not saying it never happens, but this is almost commonplace because the perpetrator can mug somebody and they know they're not going to be prosecuted. So the women were telling me they take off all their jewelry when they go shopping because they know if they have jewelry on, they're going to be a target for somebody to mug them. So that's the culture that these prosecutors have done. So we had 2 in Florida. I removed 2 of them, Tampa and Orlando. I'm the only one in the country to ever do anything about it. But we are going to do with the federal government. You have a right under the Constitution to live in a, quote, Republican form of government. That's in the Constitution. Part of Republican government means rule of law, government of law, not a government of men. I think they're violating federal civil rights, federal Constitution when they nullify the law, when they let criminals run free, and when they let the inmates run the asylum. We're going to fight back. We're going to fight back for you.
So the number one issue for voters is our border, our catastrophic open border. Now, the governor's done many things he can do as a governor from very far away from the southern border to try to help things. But what is your plan as the President of the United States to secure our border?
We'll declare it a national emergency on our first day in office. We'll mobilize resources accordingly. Military will be at the border. We'll stop the invasion. We're not going to allow the bogus claims. You wait in Mexico. We're not going to let people in. We will build the border wall, and we will actually have Mexico pay for it. And here's how you do it. Because, Donald Trump, we were both in New Hampshire recently, and he gave a speech and was just talking about I remember the rallies. He probably came to Nevada and did it, 2016, build a wall of Mexico, pay for it. I was really supportive of that. I thought we needed a wall. I think we do. And he said, well, there was no mechanism I could get Mexico to pay legally. He said, because, you can't just say fork over money and they give you money. Now, that wasn't what he was saying in 16. He was very clear he was going to force Mexico to pay. But there actually is a way you can do it. And here's what you got to do. You impose fees on the remittances that people send back to Mexico and Central and South America. You'll raise billions of dollars and you put that into building the wall. So that's what we'll do, and we will do the wall, which I think is important. But to me, the most important is the reason why it's gotten so bad is because of the Mexican drug cartels, because they are running the show. They're bringing a lot of people in. They're human trafficking people, sex trafficking people, and they're moving in a lot of fentanyl and other product into this country that is killing tens of thousands of our fellow citizens each and every year. We had a situation in Florida where a family rented an Airbnb rental unit. 18-month-old baby was just crawling on the carpet like a baby would. There happened to be fentanyl residue on the carpet, and just from that residue, the 18-month-old baby died. You have angel moms I've met who've lost kids to fentanyl. And the thing is, addiction's tough. There's a lot we need to do. We've done in Florida some programs where we're the only state in the country that had a decline in overdose deaths year over year. So there are ways you can make a difference. But with fentanyl, there's a lot of these deaths where the people are not drug addicts. You'll have like someone's daughter will be stressed out doing midterms in college. Someone tells them to try a pill to get them through, and then unbeknown to the student, it's laced with fentanyl. Take the pill, and then they die. And this is happening in communities all across this country. It's not just a border issue. So I see that as the cartels are invading this country and they're killing our people. I think you have a right as commander-in-chief, and I think you have a responsibility as commander-in-chief to fight back, including using deadly force against the Mexican drug cartels. So we're going to do that. And that will change the equation about what's going on. The other thing you have to do, Biden's had 7 or 8 million people that have come in. I'm going to send them back to their home country. You have to be willing to send back. And If you look at the number of people that are on the terror watch list who've come into this country, people coming from China, Iran, Russia, Middle Eastern countries, all these places, this is not good for this country. So I see no other way but to send back. And if you're not willing to do that, you're never going to have, any of these problems. So we will do that. We also have to, though, look, because you see what's going on in these college campuses, where before the blood was even dry off the civilian Israelis who were massacred by Hamas, people are going out and they're celebrating the Hamas terrorist attacks on American college campuses. So I've said a couple things. One, if you're studying here on a student visa and you're out making common cause with Hamas, I'm canceling your visa and sending you home. Second thing is, you have people like AOC and these left-wingers that want the United States to bring in hundreds of thousands of refugees from the Gaza Strip. And I have said we will bring in 0 from the Gaza Strip to the United States. And there's kind of a debate because some people criticize me and they say, well, they're not all Hamas. Some have said that America can separate a terrorist from a freedom fighter, and then that's how America has to approach it, and you can kind of vet people. But here's the thing. One, they elected Hamas in Gaza, so they may not all be members, but many of them voted. Second, a lot of them were cheering in the streets when the attacks happened. They weren't Hamas members. They were just normal people, supposedly. And I remember from 9/11, 2001, people in Palestinian Arabs cheering the Twin Towers being shot down or brought down. So it is, that was the worst terrorist attack we had ever had, and they were out celebrating. So when you're importing people to this country, they don't have a right to be imported here. The question is, anything you do, is that benefiting you to import people from the Gaza Strip? No, it is not benefiting the American people. We got to start putting our own people first and go with their interests. And I make the point, that a lot of the media and some of the weak Republicans didn't like, but it's true. You can't vet this and that. When you're talking about a place like the Gaza Strip, they are teaching kids to hate Jews. They're teaching kids that Israel should be wiped off the map. They want to engineer a second Holocaust. So that's a toxic culture. So whether you're a member of Hamas or not, to me is irrelevant. I don't want to import the pathologies of the Gaza Strip into the United States of America. That will increase anti-Semitism in this country if we did it, and it would increase anti-Americanism in this country, and I'm sick of doing that. If you don't like this country, then leave this country. Don't come to this country.
All right, we're going to do our last question before we do some Q&A. Governor, it's January 2033. You've served 8 amazing years as the President of the United States. What do you want to be able to have said you've accomplished?
A number of things. So first, we'll be able to say that we restored the American dream, that people can get ahead again. You're not going to be beaten down with crippling inflation and interest rates. We will have reverse Bidenomics. We will have downscaled the bureaucracy and gotten government out of people's way. We will have made this country energy independent and energy dominant. So we'll have reliable, cheap energy, and the American dream will be live and well. The other thing we'll be able to say is we've restored the sovereignty of our country, that you'll have an enforceable border. Drug cartels no longer run the show, and people are not able to pour into this country illegally like they have. We'll also be able to say that we are the world's top superpower, that our military is strong and vibrant, and that we will have successfully fended off the challenge posed by the Chinese Communist Party. The 21st century will be an American century. We'll also be able to say that our school system is now focused on educating kids, not indoctrinating kids. We will have restored the rights of parents and their place in the education and upbringing of our kids, eliminated ideology in schools like we've done in Florida, things like critical race theory, gotten the woke out of all these institutions, colleges and K through 12, and ensured that our young people, when they're going to school, are taught, among other things, about our Constitution and American civics and what it means to be an American again. We'll also be able to say, whether you live in a red state or a blue city, that criminals are held accountable for their crimes again. You do the crime, you do the time, and we will have restored public safety and the rule of law in this country. And then finally, we'll be able to say that we've restored the U.S. Constitution to its center point place in American life, and that means having a limited government that works alongside us to accomplish the things set out in the Constitution, but not having an unaccountable bureaucracy that's been weaponized against us, that imposes its will upon us without our consent. We will have returned this government to its rightful owners, we, the American people. Now, if we can say all those things, and we'll be able to say more, then we will have succeeded in restoring what Ronald Reagan called the shining city on a hill. We will have made the city stronger and freer, and we will have turned her over to our kids and grandkids in better shape than we found her. And that's the definition of success.
Yeah. We have incredibly dark times in this country. I don't need to tell all of you. You want to see America look like that 8 years from now. We need you all to grab those caucus commitment cards and fill them out before you leave today. We need your support. We got to get this guy over the line and make him the next president of the United States.
Thank you. And not only do we want you to sign the caucus commitment card, but we want you to make it your mission between now and February to ensure that you get several other people to also commit to us and do it. I think it's going to be important. You know, there was a lot of uncertainty about what Nevada would actually do. I know they've gone back and forth. I know kind of this change was engineered for certain reasons, but you know what? You know, life's not fair. I'm gonna fight wherever I need to fight. I don't care. So we're in the fight, and we're really honored to have your support and look forward to continue to build support over these next 4 months. So thank you all. God bless.
Okay, we're going to open up for some Q&A. I'm going to be a homer, and I'm going to call on Pauline Lee first. We want to thank Dave Gibbs and Pauline for being co-hosts of this event and all the great work they do. And Pauline, fire away.
Thank you. Governor, Nevada is right now 49th, possibly 50th in the country for education. And we see many of our professors are promoting socialism in our schools, whether it be in high school, middle school, college. What is your pathway and your vision for education in not only Nevada, but for the United States in general?
Great question. I mean, well, one, just first off, we are going to, as the nominee, we're going to win Nevada in 2024, which we should be able to do as Republicans. I know we haven't lately, but I think I can do it. What that'll do is that'll help bring in more good people into office. In Florida, we swept in a huge wave of people in the legislature, school boards, everything. And I think that's important because you guys are dominated by Dems. You know, we're not going to be able to fix everything from the federal perspective. There's some things we're going to do, and I'll mention some of them. But we need more Republicans elected in Nevada, and we will get the Department of Education off your back, and we'll do all that. And we want you to be able to reform education like we did in Florida, but you got to have more Republicans elected. So that's going to be a mission for me, that a rising tide lifts all boats. We want people to win up and down the ticket, and this state's going to be a priority, and I will be able to have a pathway to success unlike our recent elections. What we can do federally is a couple things. Higher education. We should not just be pouring money into universities if they're indoctrination factories. A lot of them get a lot of money from the federal government. They get research dollars, they get all this other stuff. Look, in Florida, we really overhauled our universities because I made the point that these are funded by taxpayers. They don't have a right to just do whatever they want. They need to fulfill a mission that's in the best interest of the state of Florida. It's not in Florida's interest that you use university to impose ideology. No, it's in Florida's interest that a university is about pursuing truth and preparing students to be citizens of our republic. So we've done things in Florida like all tenured professors now must undergo review every 5 years and can be let go for poor performance. That's a huge, huge change that no one's been able to do. When Israel was attacked, when Hamas attacked Israel, you saw these mealy-mouthed statements put out by Harvard and Penn and all this other stuff. University of Florida, some of ours, you look what they did. Very, very strong, no moral equivalence, very clear. So we've really worked hard to do that. At the federal level, part of that change can be driven through accreditation. Federal government controls accreditation. These are bodies that just kind of are self-selecting bodies. No one elects them. They just kind of show up and they get approved to be accreditors, and they all have an agenda. It's a left agenda. We're going to have conservative accreditors that you're going to be able to go through. So instead of saying they won't accredit you unless you have so-called DEI, which we eliminated in Florida, we will now be able to say that you're not going to get accredited if you have DEI, because it's discrimination and it's wrong, and we're not going to do that. So I think there's other things we'll do for higher ed, but it's important to tackle it because it's gotten so far off the rails. K through 12, we are going to be able to do, I believe, universal school choice nationally. I think we're going to be able to do it. We're working on how it would look. At least we'll be able to bring school choice to lower and working class people. But you know, some of these places, these blue areas, the teacher union dominates everything with the schools. And a lot of these unions were locking the kids out of school during COVID. I got sued by the teacher union in Florida in the summer of 2020 because they were trying to force schools to close because I forced them to be open. So they have a really, really bad. And in Florida, we did a thing with the union dues for teachers. No automatic dues deduction, paycheck protection for teacher union. Very important. So all those things I think are there. And then finally, it's not something we can impose federally, but we are going to champion robust civics education in this country. We need it nationwide. What we did in Florida is I created a course, 50 hours for teachers to take. And we got people from Hillsdale College to teach, Heritage Foundation, all these places. And they're talking about the foundations of America, the Judeo-Christian tradition, the Enlightenment, English common law, like anything that went into our founding fathers and the Republic, they're teaching. And the teachers that go through the program get a $3,000 bonus. So they've gone through a lot, great. And you will not get this in normal universities now. So we're going to take that course national, and we're going to try to really push, because if we're not willing to do that, if we're graduating kids that are just blank slates and have no concept of what it means to be an American, we are not going to last in this country. Benjamin Franklin, when he walked out of the Constitutional Convention, was asked, did you give us a republic or a monarchy? He said it was a republic if you can keep it. And part of that means you have citizens that have a foundation of what it means to be an American.
Okay, it's a little hard to see
right
up here.
here?
How about right up front?
Susan Prophet and Nevada Republican Club. Thank you for going after Facebook and protecting our rights to free speech. I would like to ask you, since the Democrats spend a lot of time keeping us in court, will you be going after China and the government for their dereliction and purposely bringing in fentanyl to kill us? It's cheaper than bullets and it's not as obvious. So are you thinking about maybe bringing on some class action suits to go after them from Florida?
Well, I don't know about Florida, but federally, we will hold them accountable for that. Absolutely. I mean, it's intentional. They know what they're doing. You're right, it's a cheaper way to create havoc in our society. It's ruined the lives of so many families, and it's killed so many people. And it is intentional. And they've never been held accountable for that. They've never been held accountable for releasing COVID, because COVID came out of the Wuhan lab. It was gain-of-function research, and it escaped. I don't know that it was intentionally escaped, but it definitely escaped from the lab. I think we know that. People like Fauci tried to cover it up because they funded gain-of-function research, and it makes them look bad. And yet China's never been held accountable for what they did to this world with COVID. So we do need accountability on that. On the social media, we basically just did a law saying that social media can't discriminate against you based on your political or speech, and they do against conservatives, but the protections applied to anybody. It's now at the U.S. Supreme Court. So Texas and Florida did similar laws. Neither of them have been implemented yet because of the litigation, but the U.S. Supreme Court is going to resolve what's your right to participate in some of these digital public squares. These are companies that tell you it's an open platform. The federal government gives them liability protection where you can't sue them for libel if someone posts something defamatory against you. And yet, they don't really operate as open platforms because they try to stifle dissent. They collude with the federal government to stifle speech. They colluded with Fauci. They colluded with the FBI on the Hunter Biden laptop. You're not allowed, the federal government's not allowed to subcontract out censorship to private companies. That's a First Amendment violation. So these are important issues. Court hasn't addressed it yet. We were the first state to lead on it. Texas also came and led, and I think we'll get a resolution. But I think you have a handful of companies that control the vast majority of political speech in this country. Some people say, well, since they're private, you can do what you want, but that puts a lot of power in their hands to be able to snuff out dissent and to be able to concoct the narratives that they want concocted. I think it's better when we have more speech. I think it's better when people are able to participate, and I don't think it's right when big tech censors you just because you're a conservative.
All right, how about we do one more question? Let's try this gentleman right here on the right. You with the beard and the white hair. Looking good.
Thank you. Don Walsh. Well, thanks again, Governor, and coming out and showing us your agenda items for the presidency. Mine gets back to the college loans. When the Obama administration, decided to be their own bank and give student loans out, the first thing the colleges and universities did was raise their tuition. Can we hold those colleges financially responsible for these loans and abuse on that? Thank you.
Yes, and that's my plan. I'm going to do that. So I've already announced that. We're going to have the universities and the colleges be responsible for delinquent student loans. And guess what's going to happen? See, right now, when the current system, college has every incentive to have you in the program for 6 years because you just take out more loans and you give them more tuition. They hire more DEI bureaucrats, and it just round and round it goes. Not good for the student, not obviously good for the taxpayer if you ever had to do, although we're not going to allow the taxpayer to have to bail out the student loans. I think it's wrong if you have a truck driver, you're going to make that truck driver pay for somebody's loan who got a degree in zombie studies? I don't think so. So we're not going to do that. But I think if the universities are responsible, they're going to make different choices about the programs they offer because they know they've got to produce people that are going to be able to be gainfully employed. And I think it'll be very positive change in incentives when it comes to this. And I do think it'll restrain tuition because they know that if they keep raising tuition, the more liabilities they have with the loan backing, that could put them in a worse position. So I think all in all, it's a very positive alteration of the incentives. It protects taxpayers, and it gets universities to start offering fewer of these fluff majors than they've been doing and making a fortune on offering.
All right, everyone, thank you so much for coming out this morning. Again, fill out these cards. We need your support. God bless you guys.
Thank you.
Well, I won't back down. No, I won't back down. You can stand me up at the gates of hell, but I won't back down. No, I'll stand my ground. Won't be turned around. And I'll keep this world from dragging me down. Gonna stand my ground, and I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. Hey, I will stand my ground, and I won't back down. Well, I know what's right. I got just one life in a world that keeps on pushing me around.